Welcome to episode number 116 of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast, trading 140,000 for 1.5 million. I'm your host, Mark Thackeray, and today we're going to be talking about a case study. Well, two case studies actually, and really the mindset difference between a campaign versus a system. Most dental practices don't have a marketing problem. They have a thinking problem. They have a patience problem. They think in these short bursts, these campaigns, and they have these short expectations. But those that are the best in the business, they have a systems mentality. And there's this quote by one of my mentors, Jay Abraham, who said it best. He said, "Most businesses think in campaigns, but the best ones think in systems." And today we're going to dive into what that means. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and hopefully you'll get a better idea of how to adjust your mindset so that you're thinking more strategically, so that you're thinking more long-term and not basing everything on these short-term campaign type results. We're also going to dive into why that campaign mentality limits your growth, how systems can multiply your ROI when we get into those case studies, and a few steps on how to start thinking differently right away. So what does that quote mean? That quote that I just shared by Jay Abraham, what does that actually mean? That the best businesses think in systems. They don't think in campaigns, they think in systems. Well, let's break down what that looks like. So a campaign thinking, it's this one-off mindset where I'm going to run Google Ads for 3 months. You kind of put it all in there and you say, I'll give it 3 months. We're going to see if this works. Or we're going to do a mailer and cross our fingers and it better work. Otherwise, I'm not doing this again. Otherwise, direct mail does not work at all. Or we're going to try boosting a few posts, right? That's that kind of one-off mindset where you're just doing it short term and you're looking for an immediate ROI. You're saying, okay, if this doesn't work, then automatically you disqualify that effort. You don't think that works, that's an opportunity for your practice to acquire new patients. You're looking only really for those quick wins, and you're basing everything off of that immediate result. Did it happen? Did it not? It's this very fast judgment. And if it doesn't work, then typically what happens with that campaign thinking is that you stop doing it. More often than not, I see people say, oh, I've tried that. I tried that for 3 months. I tried that for 6 months. It didn't work. I'm not going to try that again. Whereas, let's contrast that with systems thinking and how it's more long-term. It's an ongoing compounding machine when you look at it. It's about consistent lead flow, consistent follow-up, and consistent conversion. Yes, the campaigns factor into this systems thinking, but really you're not focused exclusively, I should say, on the immediate results. You're looking at that and saying, this is good feedback. How can I adjust this to make it better? Because long-term that you're going to make it better. It's going to work long-term because you see other people doing this same type of strategy and it's working. There are other people having success with this. And it's really more of that mentality that, hey, instead of just thinking, I hope this works, it's more of the, I'm going to figure out how to make this work mentality. And see that difference where one is just, you're tying it to that one outcome. Whereas the latter, you're saying, I can learn from this every step of the way to make it more effective. And you see it as this asset that you're building that can serve you long term. It's like this oil well that you're digging in the ground. Once you've got that set up, it's constantly churning for you. Yes, sometimes you're getting more output than others, but it's always there working for you in the background. That's the system mentality versus just a campaign. Okay. And James Clear talks about this. He's known for his Atomic Habits best-selling book. that's fantastic. If you haven't read it or listened to it, highly recommend it. I also recommend his newsletter that he sends out on a weekly basis. It's amazing. It's very short, concise, but full of punch. I mean, it's a great way of getting to the root and sharing that concisely. It's so cool. So check that out. But he talks about how some of the biggest gains occur after you work on the consistency. It's about repeating those same things over and over again that lead to the biggest change, the biggest difference in output, in performance, in transformation. And it's about that consistent repeated effort of those same things over and over again until you gain total mastery. And that's what this systems approach really focuses on. It's saying, I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to look at the data. It's going to inform my decisions moving forward. I'm going to make some adjustments. We're going to keep learning, keep growing, and I'm going to keep improving this whole process because I know in the long run, I'm going to figure this out. One example from my childhood was I grew up in Utah. I'm a Utah product, basketball fan growing up, not quite as much today. It's changed so much. But when I was growing up in junior high, it was junior high, not middle school. Junior high school, I remember watching the Utah Jazz and big fan of the Jazz. And they had two Hall of Famers, John Stockton, point guard, and Karl Malone, the power forward. And together they were nearly unstoppable. They were so fun to watch because they had this one play that they repeated again and again and again. And you couldn't stop it. It was unguardable, even though you knew exactly what was coming. It's called the pick and roll, where they would come set a screen and say Stockton has the ball. Malone comes up, sets a screen on his defender. Stockton rolls around the screen. Malone will turn towards the hoop, kind of block off the opposing defender. And there's so many variations to it. And it's so cool to look at how they, with time, were able to master that move and really create so many different derivatives of that same basic fundamental move. And because of that, like I said, they were unguardable. They really were unstoppable because there's so many things that you could do off of that. And I think it's a great example of what we're talking about, where you do something so often that it becomes part of you, ingrained in you. It's part of your lifestyle. Think of fitness. You think of nutrition. Those things that you do again and again and again they have a compounding effect. And it becomes part of who you are, part of your identity, so that you're not even thinking about it. It transforms the way that you look, that you feel, the way you project yourself. And that's what this systems thinking is all about. So if you look at it that way, a campaign is just an event, and a system is an asset, something that continues to provide you with value in the long run. So what does that look like? So an example could be, let's say you run an Invisalign promotion, a 30-day campaign, and that's your campaign approach. You're like, okay, I'm going to put together an ad. An ad's going to pitch the Invisalign ads, maybe an offer, and here we go. Hopefully we get some new patients from this campaign. System, let's look at that. It's a bit different, quite a bit different. Instead of just running the ad, you're looking at a lot of different variables too. You're thinking, well, yes, there are some people that will buy immediately. They know they're already in the market for Invisalign and you have a good offer. So yes, you might get a few leads from those type of people. But a systems approach also takes into account that there are many people that are in the research mode. They're gathering information. They're trying to figure out, is Invisalign even the right option for them? And some of them will go on to purchase Invisalign treatment. And so you want to cater to those people as well, but they're not ready. Even if you have a great offer, they're not ready to make that decision just yet. They haven't resolved to go with Invisalign yet. And so perhaps you create a landing page that educates them on why Invisalign's a good option or the best option in their case. Or you could create an offer or resource that they can download that allows them to educate themselves on those different options in their case. It also includes the ads, of course, just like in the campaign, but it also, a systems approach would also could factor in follow-up afterwards, for those people that inquired but didn't move forward. Those people that maybe called and didn't schedule an appointment, you have their contact info, or emailed and didn't schedule an appointment, or those that called and came in, scheduled an appointment, but didn't accept treatment. You're taking all those things into consideration. That's how you build a system, right? A campaign, it's a one-time trying to get those people in, and then you're done. Those people, but with a system, you're looking at it much more strategically and seeing all those additional people who might not be ready, but will be ready at some point. How can I speak to them? How can I attract them to my list, essentially, to my office? And then how can I nurture them along so that when they make the decision, I am right in front of them. I am the de facto option because I've been with them this whole time. I'm providing value to them, allowing them to know what their options are and to make the best decision possible. System, you take into account the questions and challenges that a prospect might be facing. You put yourself into their shoes and think, well, what if I were in their place? What would prevent me from moving forward right now? Financing. Okay. How are we going to address that? Can I trust this provider? Have other people gone to them and had a good experience? Do I have testimonial videos? Do I have case studies, before and afters? Do I really know if they can handle what I have? I feel like my case is unique. I'm not like these other people. Can you still treat me? These are types of questions that patients are going to tend to ask. And the better you can be at putting yourself in their shoes and addressing those questions, because they're not going to vocalize all those questions. They're going to be in their head, some of them. And a lot of people, if you don't address those questions, they're not willing to move forward. So if you can speak to those desires, your chances of success and conversion go way up. So that's a plain kind of black and white scenario contrast between a campaign approach versus a systems approach. And again, I want to emphasize that a system is something you can leverage again and again and again. It runs all the time. So once you build it, if you think of, okay, we've got a landing page we're talking about Invisalign. Let's say we have a landing page specifically for Invisalign. We have a resource that we've created that people can download that speaks about Invisalign treatment, breaks down the different options people face when they're looking to align their teeth. And we have all this messaging around the biggest, most common challenges people face when they're thinking about Invisalign treatment, from financing to trust to timeline to anything else. And now you have all those assets and you can be deploying those all year long. That's strategic. That's systems thinking. Big picture. It's not the, well, I hope this works idea, hope and prayer. Instead, it's the, I'm going to figure this out mentality. I'm going to build this out because I understand that they have these questions, that they're facing these issues, and I'm going to help them. I'm going to help make it, or give me the best chance of treating this patient based on their needs. So that's kind of the main crux that I wanted to get across, is just this idea that don't judge everything off of an initial campaign. Most practices think, did this campaign pay for itself in this month or during this whatever time duration you're running that campaign? Instead, think, What is the value of this patient or these patients that we generated over time? It's that long-term view. You're not buying a procedure, you're acquiring a patient. And there's a big difference between that. You're not buying a one-time event, you're acquiring a patient that has multiple events attached to this to this patient, right? They're going to need treatment at different times throughout their life. And when you rely on a system, what else it does is that you aren't putting as much pressure on that initial campaign. You're not trying to force the people to accept treatment right away because you need this to work right now. Instead, you're taking the big picture and saying, how can I just get them to know who I am, about my practice, to download this free resource that I have for them? How can I just gain their contact information? See how much easier that is and how much less pressure there is now on you and your campaign and your effort to take that next step. It's a lot like thinking like a chess master. It's thinking, okay, in order to get a checkmate, I have to work backwards and make all these series of moves to get in position. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're trying to identify what those key moves are to help a patient feel comfortable moving forward with treatment and addressing all of their concerns in the process. That's the systems approach. So let me show you a client example. I've been doing some different reports, and one of the reports I like to do is an annual report. For clients that we've been working with, it's been 12 months. It typically follows the calendar year just because it's a little easier. People are in that mindset already of reviewing. And so here's a report that I did recently for a client. And he's a cosmetic dentist, invested heavily in marketing. He understands this mentality, this long-term thinking. And he spent $140,000 in marketing during 2025. $140,000. His initial production from new patients in 2025, take a guess. That was the first visit production of all the new patients that came in based off of his marketing investment of $140,000. And actually, I think it was $148,000, if I remember correctly. So nearly $150,000 in investment to generate $114,000 in production, first time visit. And a lot of people are thinking, whoa. I just spent nearly $150,000 and I only got $115,000 back. Again, campaign thinking. You're thinking just initially off those first results. Most people would say we lost money, and they might begin to stress out and panic. But here's the reality. And kudos to my client that has adopted this mentality that there's more to the picture. Okay. The reality of this situation, he spent $148,000, and the production that came just in 2025, just exclusively from that new patient group. So first visit production plus any subsequent production in the 2025 calendar year totaled $1.5 million. So now the question is, would you trade $148,000 for $1.5 million? Easy answer, right? You do that all day, every day. The first visit didn't pay for the marketing, but the patient did. And that's the difference. That is the difference. It's why some businesses absolutely crush it and some struggle year after year with very nominal gains. Some just strategic growth, exponential growth, hockey stick style growth, because they understand this principle that there's more to the picture than the initial results. When you can focus on, in our case, the patients and their lifetime value, you can invest more because you're going to get the results on the back end. What's exciting too is his initial investment, which is a 10x return on ad spend, I should clarify. because I don't have access to all the profitability and all that stuff. But 10x on ad spend is pretty awesome, right? And he's cosmetic, so I know he has pretty good margins. But when you realize that, it allows you to do so much more, because most people are in the campaign mindset, campaign mentality. They're going to drop out when they see those initial results. Some of them are going to freak out, and they won't invest like they have in the past. So that first visit ROI is often misleading, because you don't see the full lifetime value of your patient. We've talked about lifetime value on the podcast before. Go back and listen to those episodes if you haven't. It's so important. Probably one of the most important KPIs that you can focus on in your practice is lifetime value. But and what's cool about this scenario is that this was only 2025. So his return, which I said was 10x on return on ad spend currently, is continuing to improve over time as those patients come back again and again and again. Obviously, not all of them will stay as patients, because there's fall off and there's churn, but some will. So his return on that initial investment keeps going up. And that's not even including any referrals that those patients created, family members, friends. So you see how this compounding effect that we talked about, that's what we're talking about. Systems thinking, what it provides is this compounding effect time and time again. So it's again, marketing isn't an expense. It's patient acquisition. I have this conversation a lot, and it's easy to spot who sees it as an expense versus those who see it as a strategic investment. And often it's an easy filter for me to say, do I want to work with this client or not? I've come to this stage in my career where I don't want to work with people who don't get it already. I just don't have enough time to get them up to speed. I would love to if I had the time, but it's just not worth it. I want to help those people that already have adopted that mentality or are embracing that mentality now so that they can grow more strategically. But what's cool about all this too, aside from the return that you get, is that when you play the long game, you also gain confidence in your ability to invest to acquire patients. You can spend more than your competitors, which allows you to scale faster. Think about that for a second. All these people that they see that they have that campaign mindset, they opt out right away if they don't see those results. And most of them, it'll do it quickly. Even if they don't do it immediately, they might say, well, I'm going to give it a little bit more. They're not willing to go the full distance to truly acquire that patient because they fail to equate the total value that patient brings them in the long run. When I first got into business for myself, I was just out of college. Well, I actually had started some businesses in high school, and we did a t-shirt, clothing, beanie store or shop, a company rather, and sold apparel and stuff like that to different stores in the state, which was fun and just kind of dipping my toe. But once I fully got invested into business for myself, I just graduated from college, started a photography company, and the lifetime value of a client for me back then, once I understood that principle, it was a massive game changer, because I can't remember my numbers exactly, but I want to say average lifetime value is about $3,500. So, and at the time I was trying different campaigns with that same short-minded mentality. Short-term thinking, did I get enough people to pay for this one campaign right away off the initial investment? And once I understood this principle, I started to invest more heavily. I could say, well, I had initially had this arbitrary idea, this number of $100 per client, I was okay with that. But once I understood my lifetime value, that was able to go up to $500, $600 a client easily because I understood the lifetime value. I understood that they were going to bring me about $3,500 in exchange. And I was totally fine with that return. And now, so if you see going from $100 to $500, and eventually I went even higher, but that gives me 5 times the amount that I can spend or invest to acquire those customers. Assuming you have the capital, right? That's always a factor, but it does give you 5 times the ability to acquire more clients in my case. And that was huge. Most of my competitors didn't get that. And so it allowed me to ramp up my photography business very quickly. And it was so exciting. It's just, it made it so much easier to market my business. A lot of less, like I said before, it removes a lot of that pressure from the get-go. You're much more strategic. You're just thinking, what is the next step to get them to come? Because once I get them 2 or 3 steps in, my close rate goes up significantly. I realized that once I got them to a certain step, which was just to meet with me, either in person or via Zoom, it was 90% done deal. And so all of that focus then became on getting them to that next step or to that one step. And then we can do the same thing with our dental clients, right? With these patients that are trying to understand, is Invisalign right for me? Are porcelain veneers a good option to correct all these issues that I'm facing right now? What are those steps? What is that step to get there? And how can I pave the path, so to speak, make it easy for them to get to those steps? So those are the advantages that you gain with this type of mentality. Second case study from another client, and she invested $22,000 in ad spend on this one channel. Similar thing happened. Initial production was actually better. It already had a pretty good return on ad spend, but it was fun to see that grow over time, because sometimes you get a return and you think, man, I really think it should be more, but you're just thinking in that short window. And if you can expand your vision, typically it does get, it can double very quickly. So in her case, she spent $22,000 in spend on this one channel, and the resulting production, I think it was $160,000. Yeah, $160,000 in that first calendar year, but then add another 6 to 8 months beyond that year, and it jumps up to $225,000 in production, just from that $22,000 in ad spend. Again, a 10x return on ad spend. This is the power of understanding the lifetime value of a patient. Again, her return is going to increase. It's going to keep going up. She does a great job of retaining patients once they've come in, because they're very hands-on, very personal, high-touch approach. And so that's going to continue to rise again and again. Now think of, if you're stacking that 22,000 here in this channel, 20,000 in this channel, and you're layering all those efforts, that's a system, right? You have all these systems in play, and now they're generating immediate returns, the short term, right? Which is great. You need that too. But more importantly, it's building that pipeline of production for the next couple of years. And if you keep doing that month after month, year after year, and you're stacking all those things up, that's how you grow. That's how you grow exponentially. And that's why this is so exciting, and why I feel that marketing is such a huge lever in your business to get you to where you want to be. And that's going to look different for every practice. It could be opening a second office. It could be more production. It could be adding an associate. It could just be refining what type of treatment you want to spend your time on. So it's not something, again, it's a lot of this is reframing how you view your approach to marketing. It's not the short term. Didn't happen in 30 days. It doesn't happen in 60 days. It happens over time because of your system. Happens with the magic of time too, which is so cool. And these compounding efforts over time yield the biggest results. Time is the multiplier that most practices. So how do we do this? Okay, so what are some practical ways to start thinking more systems mindset? Well, for me, I've mentioned a number of these already. One is to start tracking lifetime value. So look at the first production. Yes, that's important. But also look at 6 months in, look at 12 months in, look at 24 months in. It's going to give you a much better idea of how much this patient really brings in. And then you average that out. Yes, I get that some patients spend a lot and they do it in their first visit and they don't come back, and others, they don't. They are preventive patients. They love to just come and get their preventative treatment done time and time again. They're really good. And so it's gonna vary. But if you understand the average and guess conservatively, you'll always be ahead. You'll almost always be ahead. What's also cool you can do is once you have these numbers, once you're tracking these numbers, you can now break that down by source. So we can break that down by Google Ads, for example. We can break that down by Instagram, Facebook. We can break that down by referrals, by patient referrals. We can break that down by doctor referrals. And then you look at, okay, well, what's the average patient value based on source? And then you look at, well, what's my return on spend based on source? For this example, in that first example I gave, who went 148,000 investment to 1.5 million in production from those new patients in that 12 months. His return, just pull it up. So I was just looking at it this morning. His investment, well, let me just do ROAS. Let me do return on ad spend per source was, so he had 6.1 on Instagram. So 6x basically on Instagram. Google was just over 7.25x. Patient referrals and doctor referrals, they don't do much. So this is a huge return. I just kind of put it as 20 just because it's actually much, much more than that for what how much investment they're doing. But in word of mouth too, as far as community events, branded items, things of that nature, sponsoring local things, 5.7x. So it's good to understand that and see, oh yeah, I'm getting better return. Obviously my patient referrals and doctor referrals, we're not putting a ton into that, but we're getting a lot out of it. Can we maximize that even further? Same thing too, you can break that down by what's the average new patient value by source. In his case, his Instagram, over $10,000. Again, he's cosmetic, and Instagram, very visual medium. You're going to show a lot of before and afters, show a lot of education. He's very hands-on with his marketing. Loves to do videos. Has no problem doing that. And it shows, right? 10,000 average new patient value on Instagram. Google, 5,700. Patient referrals, 2,200 or close to 2,300. Doctor referrals, close to 5,000. And word of mouth, 4,400. And that's new patient value for just those 12 months. So in reality, this is actually going up. But we're just, again, trying to be conservative because then we're always going to be happy with the results if we're conservative, because it's actually more than this. Those are some things that you can start doing right now, is looking at, start tracking your lifetime value, break that down by source, look at your return on ad spend, for those sources. And then you can start looking at your system, building your system. It's going to help inform you of, okay, where can I start, right? It's going to help you see, I can start with, maybe you just want to start with patient referrals, which is a great place to start, by the way. This is an oft overlooked opportunity that rarely gets maximized by most practices. It's a very hope and pray mentality that most doctors adopt when it comes to patient referrals. There are so many more things that you can do. And if you're interested, we would love to help you. We've got a whole system for this, but that's a great place to start. So you start thinking, well, what can I do for this next calendar year? What kind of system can I build that we will consistently perform, that's realistic, but that will support that effort, support patient referrals, be more proactive, and make it easier for patients to refer. Again, put yourself in their shoes and understand what are the challenges they're facing. Well, they don't always remember our office. As soon as they leave the door after the appointment, they don't think of you ever again until it's time for a checkup or an emergency. So how can I address that? Well, there's a number of things that we could do, and you list that out, right? And you can do that for each channel or each part of your system. It could be for social media ads. It could be for Google ads. It could be for SEO. Again, you're trying to build this system. You do it strategically. You don't have to try and build it all at once, but just pick one. I would pick with one first, build that out so that it starts working for you instead of having the start of some, having started several different ones, but nothing that's really built out enough to really serve you yet. So start with one and then work on building that into more of a system. Follow-up system. You can start thinking down that road and just say, am I tracking? So I'm tracking lifetime value. Am I tracking leads? Now, do I have a follow-up system for those leads? Is it just if my front desk calls on them more than once, if they leave a message, do we try once? Do we try twice and then give up? What else can we do to continue to follow up on them? These are people that have had enough interest to pick up the phone and call, fill out a form. That's pretty good. In our world, that's pretty good. There's a lot of people that just hit the website and don't do either of those. So what can we do to make it easier for them to come in? Think in terms of put yourself in their shoes. What would I need to feel comfortable to actually schedule an appointment? What are my concerns? Start working on building that out. Okay. And then the last one I'll say is just trying to reframe the way you look at time. It goes back to what we said at the beginning. Focus on the mentality of, I'm going to figure this out. I am going to figure this out. Doesn't matter if it takes me 6 months, a year. I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn how to do it. Other people are doing it. I can do it. I've seen other people do it. And I can figure this out too. Work on that mentality. And it's great, not just for marketing, it's great for life. Okay. So those are the ones that I would recommend. Just to bring it all home, if you think in campaigns, you'll always be starting over. But if you think in systems, you'll eventually build something that runs without you. You'll have all those pieces in place that take the patient from step A to step Z already made out for you, already working for you. And that's where the magic really happens. It's the consistent, repeated efforts that compound over time to produce amazing returns and really to produce for you the lifestyle that you're hoping for. Okay. So if you want help building a true patient acquisition system and not just running another campaign, reach out. We would love to help you map that out and build it the right way for you and your practice. Contact Maria, my assistant, at maria@markthackeray.com to schedule a time to talk. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to figure out where you want to go and help you create a map to get you there. So that's it for today, you guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back next week with some more great content If you have any questions, just reach out too. If you're looking for guidance on a specific area, hit me up. Just reach out to Maria at markthackeray.com. Let her know what you're struggling with, and we'd love to address that down the road. Thanks, you guys. Have a great week.